Hey everyone, it's Chay on the mic. We're going beyond politics. Hope you're psyched. Not just policies, not just plans. We're talking dreams, hobbies, and life's other strands. We'll meet the leaders behind the scenes, uncover the stories in between, the laughs, the quirks, the passions they hide, their personal moments, unfiltered and wide. Ready or not, let's get underway. This is Beyond Politics with Chay. Welcome to Beyond Politics with Chay. Today we have a very special guest. Most of our viewers know Jason very well. We have Jason Clare here with us today on Oz Arab Media. Jason, thank you so much for joining us today. Could you please give our viewers, for those that don't know you already, a quick 30-second intro?
Oh, hi, Shay. Thanks for having me on. So I'm Jason Clare. I'm the Minister for Education for Australia, and I'm also the member for Blaxland, which is, well, our home here in Western Sydney. I represent suburbs like Bankstown and Auburn and Chester Hill, and I grew up in Cabramatta, not far from here.
We'll start with our icebreakers. There are 3 standard questions that I ask everyone. The first question, what is one thing that people don't know about you?
Well, I think most people know that I'm a dad, right? Most people know I've got a little 8-year-old and a 3-year-old. So maybe that's not something people don't know about me. But what they might not know about me is that I'm a bit of a history nut. I'm obsessed with history. I love ancient history. And I did history at school and history at university. And now with all of this technology, podcasts mean that I can listen to history podcasts whenever I want.
Nice to know. Okay, one compliment that you receive nearly every day.
Well, I don't know whether I receive it every day, but some people say that I look younger in person than I do on television. And because I'm getting older, when people tell you that you look younger than you look on TV, that's a nice thing for people to say.
Definitely a compliment. Definitely a compliment. Okay, one of my favourite questions. If you could introduce one feature to a smartphone, that could be Android or the iPhone, what would that be?
To an iPhone?
To an iPhone. Anything.
Gosh. An app. Well, see, I'm a dad with kids who use phones and iPads too much now. I'm trying to get them to go out and play soccer and play OzTag and get out and run around. So my special feature is an ability to turn off my son's iPad.
I'm not sure if he'd be very happy with that.
No, he might not be.
Like a parental control.
Yeah, extra parental control. We've been talking in the Parliament about this. Social media is affecting our kids sometimes in a really bad way. And so I see that as a dad too. It's something that's on my mind.
It'll be the Jason Clare blackout.
That's right.
No notice given. So Jason, tell me a little bit about your story. Talk to me about your childhood and where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in Cabramatta, not far from here. And I'm the first person in my family to go to uni. I'm the first person in my family to finish high school. I'm actually the first person in my family to finish year 10.
Amazing.
My mum never went to high school at all. She got really sick when she was little and she was in bed for 2 years. And so when she got to high school, she couldn't keep up and wasn't able to finish or start high school even. I went to Cabramatta Public School and Canley Vale High School here in Western Sydney. And I did okay at school and I became a lawyer. And then I disappointed my mum and dad and became a politician.
A historian and a lawyer, the makings of a politician, I think.
There are a lot of politicians who are lawyers. When I was little, I actually wanted to be a policeman. And then when I was at high school, I did work experience at Liverpool Hospital. I wanted to be a doctor.
That's nice.
And then I changed my mind again and I wanted to be a lawyer. And that's okay. I guess the message for young people around the country is you can change your mind a lot. All of those jobs, though, policeman, doctor, lawyer, politician, they've got one thing in common. They're about helping people. And I think ever since I was little, I wanted to be able to help other people. And in this job, I get to do that right across the country.
Definitely do. Thank you so much, Jason, for that. So you've touched on it a little bit. if you could share one story from your childhood that inspired you to take on that career into politics. You spoke about your mum. What was it about your childhood that pushed you that much further into a career in politics?
Well, I grew up at a time where there were lots of refugees from other parts of the world coming to our local community, people from Vietnam and from Laos, people from Lebanon, people from South America as well. So my classroom was full of kids who sometimes couldn't speak English, or they told stories about terrible things that had happened to them and their mum and dad. And so I think growing up, I realised just how lucky I was to grow up here in Australia, how lucky I was to have a mum and a dad, because some of my friends had lost their mums and their dads, and how important it was, particularly for people in our local community, to make sure that you help people to rebuild their lives and to get started. And, in the last 40 years, I've seen the kids I went to school with finish school, become doctors and lawyers and engineers and pharmacists and business owners. And they're doing all of that here in Western Sydney now. That's because of the school system, but also the things that government can do to help people to build their life and rebuild their life here in Australia.
Definitely we hear education as a leveller, so thank you so much for sharing that. We'll get on to the next bit of the show. Let's explore a little bit more, Jason, about your personality and who you are. Tell me, is there one or two hidden talents or passions that you harbour that would surprise people if they knew?
Well, when I was a kid, I was just obsessed with sport and spent more time kicking a soccer ball or hitting a cricket ball than in the classroom. And I always wished that I could one day be part of the Australian cricket team. But no, I was never really good enough to make it into the Australian cricket team. But I still have the skin cancers and the melanomas to pay for all of that time out there in the Australian sun. Yeah, so what I try to do now is remind people you've got to wear lots of sunscreen when you're out there playing sport, and I try and make sure I lather up my kids as well, because I'm now paying for it as an older person.
They say actually sunscreen is one of the best defense barriers, obviously for the sun, but also one of the best skincare tips. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Hopefully that influences a lot more people to slip.
Yeah, there'd be fewer wrinkles on my face, I suspect, if I wore more sunscreen when I was a kid.
Jason, so obviously a very big portfolio education, representative of the learning journey from early childhood through to school and obviously tertiary and vocational education. So if you could tell me a little bit about the recent reforms that have been announced by the Labor government and the reasons behind the timing and hopefully the positive impacts that it would make on Australians, whether they be studying or looking to study in the future.
Yeah. Well, as you said, I'm responsible for everything from childcare to schools to universities, and we're making big reforms across all of those areas, cutting the cost of childcare for parents. There's more than 1 million families across the country that are benefiting from that. Increasing funding for our schools to help make sure more children finish school. We've seen a bit of a drop in the number of children finishing school. I want to turn that around and help more go to TAFE and to university. And then cutting the cost of university, because university can be expensive. And so what we've promised is if we win the next election, we'll cut everyone's HECS debts, everyone's student debt by 20%. And to put that in perspective, if you've got the average student debt today, which is about $27,000, that means that it will cut your debt by about $5,500. And that's on top of the cuts that happened just in the last few weeks.
So tell me a little bit more about those cuts in November that will obviously have gone through Parliament and the reforms that will you look to introduce next year post the election.
Yeah, so in the last few weeks we passed laws through Parliament to cut the student debt of 3 million Australians. We cut about $3 billion worth of student debt. And for someone with the average student debt, it cuts their debt by about $1,200. So that's considerable, and that fixes some of the bump in inflation that affected HECS debts last year and make sure that never happens again. But that's just the start. The next step is to cut everyone's debt by a further 20%. And that will mean a further $5,500 cut off your student debt if you've got a debt of $27,000, which is the current national average. But some people have got a bigger debt than that. Some people have got a debt of $50,000. And that means if we win the next election, we'll be able to cut your debt by $10,000. So that is a really big difference for a lot of young people who've just finished uni and they've maybe just got their first full-time job. They might be just out of home. And by cutting their debt, it will make it easier for them to be able to get a mortgage, to be able to buy their own home. And we're also going to make some changes to the way you pay it back too. So you don't have to pay as much back every year and you keep more money in your own pocket rather than having to give it to the government.
That's a huge, huge difference for a lot of students. I know that's something that they carry around with them during and post-uni. Can we talk a little bit about vocational education? Any proposed changes to that current system or funding that apprentices and our skills workers can expect to receive?
Yeah, well, TAFE is just as important as university. We want more people to finish school and then go to TAFE or uni. One of the two, both of them are really, really important. So with universities, we're cutting the cost of student debt by 20%, but with TAFE, we're making more TAFE courses free. And over the course of the last 2 years, we've had about 500,000 people sign up for free TAFE courses. And now we want to make that permanent. We want free TAFE courses to be a permanent part of vocational education and have at least 100,000 people be able to do a free TAFE course every year. And we've got legislation in the Parliament right now to make that a reality.
So Jason, if we can now have a look at families and younger children, so way before they even think about university, could you tell me a little bit about some of the education programs that the federal government is looking to expand that has a focus on reading and numeracy?
Yeah, and this is important even before kids start school, even before they're in kindergarten, because so much of the human brain is developed by the time you're 5 years old. And so if you don't get a chance to go to preschool or to childcare, then some children miss out on the building blocks of how to read and how to learn. And so we're doing two things. We've announced that if we win the next election, we'll provide 3 days of guaranteed access to subsidised childcare for every child who needs it in the country. These are often children from really poor families who otherwise would miss out on that opportunity. Sometimes children who may not get to see a book or read a book until they're at school. That's one part of it. But then it's about making sure that we test children when they're really little, when they're about 5 or 6 in kindergarten or year 1, on what's called a phonics check to see that they understand how to read and interpret basic words.
So just on that, for our audiences, could you explain what a phonics check is?
Well, it's about children understanding sounds. So able to break a word up into different sounds. And if you can do that, if you know that CH means ch, or that AU means O, then you're able to be able to read any word. And so phonics is a tool that teachers use in the classroom when kids are really little to teach them how to read. And we need to test that when children are little to see that they've got those basic skills. And if they don't, to be able to give them extra support. And that can involve getting them out of a classroom of 30 children into a classroom of 3 or 4 children and give them a bit of catch-up help, a bit of catch-up tutoring. And so they're the sorts of things that we're doing here to make sure that children have got the skills they need, because we know that children need to be able to learn to read by the time they're 8 years old. And then by the time they're 8, then they can read to learn so much else.
So Jason, I'm going to shift to another focus area. A lot of our viewers, obviously, having a Middle Eastern background, very diverse cultural groups within the Canterbury-Bankstown region. Now, recently we've had a couple of very hurtful Islamophobia attacks and incidents in the area. Could you tell me a little bit about your views on this and whether or not you see this as something that is going to impact the residents in the future as well?
Yeah. Well, this is just disgusting. attacking people based on their faith is the absolute opposite of what Australia is all about and should be about. Australia is the best country in the world, and I think one of the reasons we're the best country in the world is because we're made up of people from all around the world, all different backgrounds, all different cultures, and all different faiths and religions. And so Islamophobia is when you have people attacking another group of people because they're Muslim. And it is just as bad as attacking Christians because they're Christians. When I see people being attacked or ridiculed, whether it's online or on the street because they've got a cross around their neck or because they're wearing a hijab, that to me is the absolute opposite of what Australia is and should be about. And so when people scrawl graffiti on a pole attacking Islamic Australians, then I really worry about that. And I think it's my job as the local politician to call that out and to say that the people that do that are just brain dead morons, and that what we as a community are is this great example of people living together in harmony, and we should be proud of that.
We've seen similar attacks on Jewish communities within the eastern suburbs.
Yeah.
A lot of people, some faith community advocates, suggest that it might be time to revisit the religious discrimination bill. What's your view on this?
Well, in order to make sure that we get religious discrimination legislation right, and legislation that's going to protect people of faith, and legislation that's going to last forever, the key thing here is we've got to get the two big political parties together, the Labor Party and the Liberal Party. We weren't able to do that this year, which is disappointing, but that doesn't mean that can't happen in the future. There was a lot of work done this year between the Labor Party, the Liberal Party, and religious leaders across the country to try and get this legislation right. We haven't got there yet, but hopefully we will get there in the future.
Thanks so much for that, Jason. So Australia, some might say, currently faces challenges as a multicultural and multi-faith society. If we can maybe positively look at what multi-faith and multicultural society is and looks like, what do you believe are the advantages of living in a country like Australia that has so much diversity?
Well, I said it a moment ago, we're the best country in the world. To say Australia is so much better and so much stronger because we're made up of people from all around the world. If we got in a time machine and went back 50 years to when I was born, Australia doesn't look anything like what we look like today. Only 1% of people had heritage from anywhere other than Europe. Now, around about 50% of people are either born overseas or their parents were born overseas. And in our local community, it's even higher than that. It's about, I think, 75, 80%. That gives us a real advantage, I think, over other countries when it comes to business, when it comes to trade, when it comes to being able to sell things to the rest of the world. Because if you've got family and friends and experience and expertise in other parts of the world, then it makes it easier to build businesses to sell things to other parts of the world. And you can see it here. You just drive around our local community and you'll find businesses that are based here that are import-export businesses that sell to other parts of the world. And, one of the reasons for that is because we're such a diverse, multicultural country. John Paul II said of Lebanon that it's more of a message than it is a country. I think Australia is too. Yeah, there's all these economic benefits, but there's also a message that we send to the rest of the world about how you can do things, how people from different backgrounds, different religions, different countries can all come here to Australia and live in harmony. It doesn't mean giving up what you were. It doesn't mean giving up language or culture or religion, but all of that you take with you, bring with you, and help to make Australia a better place. You mentioned I'm Education Minister. When I go to primary schools and I talk to the really little kids about what Australia is, I tell them that Australia is a fruit salad.
That's so very...
And because you think about what a fruit salad is, apples, oranges, watermelon. We all like all of those individual fruits, but they're better when they're all together. And that's Australia too. We're better when we're all together.
Thank you so much, Jason, for that insight. So let's move on to our next part of the show, Rapid Fire. I'm going to ask you 5 questions.
This is your favourite part of the show, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Around 5 questions. Tell me the first thing that comes to mind. There's no right or wrong answers.
Okay.
Starting with favourite movie.
Star Wars.
Why?
Well, it's goodies and baddies. And when I was a little boy, I always wanted to be Luke Skywalker.
Nice. Okay, favourite song.
Favourite song? Pearl Jam, Better Man.
Okay, any fond memories or surprises with that song?
Oh, well, I was at the Pearl Jam concert just a couple of weeks ago in Sydney with about 80,000 of my closest friends, and just being able to hear Eddie Vedder and the band play, it was awesome.
Very nice. Favourite meal?
Favourite meal? Ooh, I'm going to say Vietnamese pho.
I think half of Canterbury Bankstown would agree with you on that one. Okay, what about your favourite cafe?
Favourite cafe? Ooh, I'm going to say Isabel in Padstow Heights.
Nice, very nice. Okay, and a tricky one. The last book that you've read?
The last book that I've read is, I told you I was a bit of an ancient history nut, is a book by Tom Holland called Pax, which is all about Roman emperors.
Thank you, Jason. So before we wrap up, what is one piece of advice or a personal mantra that you live by that you'd like to share with our viewers?
Well, my mum always told me that the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I've kept that with me my whole life, is that, just working hard is important. If you want to get somewhere in life, then you've got to focus, you've got to be disciplined, and you've got to work hard. And I've tried to do that in everything that I do. I try to do that as the local Member of Parliament.
Thank you very much, Jason. And the best way for our viewers to get in contact with you to continue the conversation?
Yeah, well, you can contact me on Facebook or on Instagram. You can pop into my office in Bankstown on Chapel Road, or you can just ring the office. There's lots of ways to get in touch.
Thank you so much, Jason, for joining us today. I'm going to leave our viewers with one of your personal messages, especially ahead of Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone. This is a really special time of the year where we stop working for a little bit and do what is more important than anything else in life, and that is spend some time with the most important people in our lives, with our mums and our dads, our partners, our kids, and for some of us, our grandkids. And I just hope that Santa's good to you if you're celebrating Christmas, and that even if you're not celebrating Christmas, that you have a great summer break and you do get a chance over the break to spend time with your loved ones and also drive safely. This is the time of the year where you hear terrible stories about people getting involved in car accidents, because there's a lot of people on the road travelling big distances. So drive safe, eat in moderation. If you're drinking, drink in moderation too, but don't love in moderation. Love your family as much as you possibly can, and wrap your arms around your family at this very, very special time.